everyone. So this episode is going to be just a little bit different. We're going to call this the catch-up counter. This is going to cover the Go Home Raw Talk and Talking Smack for September 20th and 25th. In order for everybody to just kind of have everything that they need, all of the context for Extreme Rules, we're going to do kind of a condensed version of both shows for the week. That way you're all caught up. I'm Casualeann. Come with me. So we start with this September 20th edition of Raw Talk. It is a night of ascensions. No, not that ascension. They began by recapping the end of the triple threat match between WWE Champion Big E, former WWE Champion Bobby Lashley, and Universal Champion Roman Reigns. This was truly, in the words of JR, a slobber knocker. So many great spots, so many near falls. I was positively enthralled the whole time, from beginning to end. The hosts for the September 20th edition of Raw Talk are Scott Stanford and Matt Camp. They begin with headlines. Roman Reigns wins on his night away from SmackDown. They start with the Bloodline versus the New Day. Now the Bloodline wins due to Bobby Lashley just laying waste to everything that moved. They give us some match cards, the Usos versus the Street Profits, and the Universal Championship Extreme Rules match with Roman versus the Demon Finn Balor. The hosts discuss the Tribal Chiefs building momentum with 2 wins in one single night. But none of this will prepare you for the Demon. Now Scott asks Camp who will win in this Universal Championship Extreme Rules match. Camp is dead center of the island of relevancy because he says he won't pick against Roman Reigns until somebody tells him otherwise. They turn to Doudrop and Eva Marie, who absolutely buries Eva 16 feet deep and declares the evolution over. It was over. So over. And then over again. But now it's over. And over. And overdone. It was definitely over. Maybe over easy. They go to Kevin Patrick, who is with Doudrop, and she elaborates on the end of the evolution. She's devastated Eva 3 times, but she says if Eva wants to keep running her mouth, she's more than happy to punch her in it. Patrick asks if she can confirm that she's not from Finland, because apparently that's a thing that Eva's been saying, and she says she's from Ayrshire, Scotland, which is also, I think, Drew McIntyre's neck of the woods. And finally, Doudrop teaches Kevin how to prance with the wiggling fingers, and then they hand it back to Stanford and Camp, who also do it. There's some ads, and we get recap of the Women's Tag Team Championship, which is now firmly in the hands of Super Brutality. Stanford wants to know if the wins from this past week actually came in handy, kind of helping things along. And Camp answers that their histories as champions and that kind of mutual respect have brought them together. So Kevin is with the new Women's Tag Team Champions, and he asks how they feel. Now Rhea says great, Nikki says super. Yep. Kevin puts on the Captain Obvious hat, points out that they are an odd duo. And Rhea's like, initially I wasn't there for it, but she did grow on me. She's learned to respect Nikki for what she's gone through, and she's glad that they're the tag champions together. Now Nikki says that she's such a softie deep down. Deep down. And then Rhea compares the team to Vegemite. I've never had Vegemite myself, but she says she's the salty, Nikki's the sweet, and that goes into like a whole wormhole of food comparisons, eventually landing in the lap of Stanford and Camp. So Kevin, in congratulating the champs and signing off, points out that Nikki ASH is the first woman to win 3 Women's Tag Team Championships. Now, how perfect for this work hard, sweet, scrappy baby face character that she arguably pulls victories out of a team more than any other woman. You can't write it better than this. So in comment, Scott Stanford merely says that winning breeds chemistry. They briefly talk about the tag team champions, specifically Randy Orton versus AJ Styles. Now, Randy Orton did win in that singles match. Camp and Stanford note how Randy was finally able to focus once Omos was ejected, and they transition into the upcoming Jeff Hardy segment. We get some ads. Then they come back to discussing Shayna Baszler winning over Nia Jax with a Kirifuda clutch, then trying to rip her arm off. The way Nia was screaming, I thought the Fiend was about to come back. Shayna, with this, has her first win in months. They move to Jeff Hardy being worked on by Sheamus. He's able to turn it around, finally, to make the U.S. Championship a triple threat. Kevin Patrick is with Jeff Hardy in full Joker face paint. Jeff Hardy, not Kevin Patrick. Patrick asks how it feels to have won this opportunity to challenge for the U.S. title. He says he's with the stars. People can't help but think about the Hardy Boys when you think of Extreme Rules. He says he remembers beating Jinder Mahal and that he didn't know it at that moment, but he'd actually become a Grand Slam champion then. So the U.S. title means a lot to him. Patrick asks what it's like to contend with Damian Priest. He says he's a fan and that Damian is in turn a fan of his. Says it doesn't get any more intense when it comes to Sheamus, and that, quote, worlds collide with matches like these. Patrick wants to know about the fans' reaction. He got this big, huge pop in his home state. What does that feel like? And Hardy points out that this is the first time that Raw has been in Raleigh, North Carolina for a decade, and that those people make him feel superhuman. I think WWE righted somewhat the wrong that was done to Bianca by allowing Jeff to actually win in his home state. With that, they go back to WWE headquarters where we get some match cards. They show us the Raw Women's Championship, SmackDown Tag Team Championships, SmackDown Women's Championship, and a Universal Championship. The conversation moves to Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss. Now, the hosts argue that Charlotte Flair's got the win if we're talking pure wrestling, but Alexa has got the mind games. And Alexa, in this final kind of tete-a-tete, says, you are nothing without that championship. She tells Charlotte she's nothing without it. She's empty. This felt extremely real, this exchange, and I absolutely loved it. However, one of the things I didn't care for was that Raw Talk didn't even mention Humberto Carrillo and Angel Garza beating Mansoor and Mustafa Ali. Made no sense to me whatsoever. Hopefully this is something that is going to continue, so foreground it at least a little bit. Takes like 5 seconds to say that. But generally, they did a great job at hyping up this episode of Raw and whetting my appetite for Extreme Rules. My rating is 4 out of 5. It was a good, solid show. The back and forth with Rhea, Nikki, and Kevin I thought was sweet. I wish they would have dug just a little bit deeper, especially into how they went from just being rival contenders to all of a sudden being this vibrant tag team. But it was still good. I loved how tough talking Doudrop was and the contrast between that and trying to teach Kevin Patrick how to like sprinkle the dewdrops. It really kept the interest going. The must-watch segment though is Jeff Hardy. He refused to let people forget about where Raw actually was, even if you supposedly aren't allowed to say Raleigh. That was super refreshing to hear. You don't get to hear those little Hardy's North Carolina accents, and Jeff still got a little tiny bit of his, so that was also cool to hear. Alrighty, let's move on to Talking Smack from September 25th. Our hosts are Matt Camp and Sam Roberts. This is the final show before Extreme Rules. Now, I'm always surprised by how high Robert's voice is, only because he has such a severe, almost kind of stern look on his face. Then he opens his mouth and this animated, almost sprightly kind of sound comes out, and part of me just finds joy in that. Am I a bad person? They launch in with the headlines. Roman Reigns and Montez Ford's singles main event. The Tribal Chief triumphed, and Camp and Roberts gush over Ford's toughness and how the Demon Finn Balor returned at the end. King Nakamura defeated Apollo Crews to remain Intercontinental Champion. Guess he's a fighting champion after all. And there was the debut of WWE's 14 millionth talk show, Happy Talk. They show recap for Zelena Vega versus Liv Morgan. Zelena defeated Morgan here. They give motivations that were working inside of the match. Mind games, and Vega softening Liv Morgan up for Carmella. They point out that this is only Liv Morgan's second pay-per-view match. Now Kayla is with Liv Morgan, and she gets the subtle brush off. Liv Morgan, you can tell, is a nut for answering questions. She gives a simple warning. I'm going to make Extreme Rules the worst night of your life. You can hear the emotion in Liv Morgan's voice, and she whispered. The impact heightened with the lowered volume. You really got the bang for your buck with this one statement. Conversation turns back to Cruz and Nakamura, and Camp calls this recent rematch perhaps the best one that they've ever had. Rick Boogs actually overhead slammed Commander Aziz. Insane. Roberts notes the power of this destructive combination, and Camp gives us the current worst of worst case scenarios for the upcoming draft. What if Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs are separated? Then they joke about Pat McAfee being completely devastated by that. They move on to Dominic and Rey Mysterio and Sami Zayn. Camp and Roberts take opposing sides again, with Camp wanting the Mysterios apart and Dominic needing counsel elsewhere, and Roberts saying Dominic just needs to listen to his dad and that Dominic has a huge legacy to live up to. Sami Zayn does offer some of that supplementary counsel. We'll see where that's headed. Kayla is with Rey Mysterio, and she asks kind of what's going on with you and Dominic. How are you feeling about all of this? He expresses his confusion, and he questions whether he's actually doing the right thing, whether he's going about this the right way by being so hard on Dominic. Kayla asks how Dominic's actually been doing in the ring, and he cites Dominic's growth. He's only been here for a year, and he wants him to be great, not good. That's why he nitpicks. So she goes more general from there, asks what their relationship is like right now, and he basically thinks that this is just a phase they're going through, that disagreements happen in families. And Rey is so genuine in this interview. You can just kind of feel his fatherly love, and I thought it was just wonderful. We next get the move to the debut of Happy Talk. The openly rich and magnetic Happy Corbin hosts the episode and is also his first guest. That is until Kevin Owens comes out and gets his rear end handed to him. Roberts chalks all of this up, KO showing up and all of that, on him just hating on Corbin now that he's rich. And they segue to Bianca, who will join us on Talking Smack. We get some ads, and they circle back around to the main event. Montez Ford comes from the heavens with Roman getting his knees up. He hits the guillotine and puts Ford out. Nighty-night, Mr. Ford. Post-match, everything goes dark, and Finn Balor leaps from his perch to take out the entire bloodline. Camp and Roberts both agree that this is not Finn Balor. And that's actually exacerbated by the stipulation. The chairs, the tables, the kendo sticks. It's gonna be nuts. We get some match cards for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, the US Championship, the Raw Women's Championship, the SmackDown Women's Championship. But the SmackDown Women's Championship is last, and they use this to transition into Kayla with Bianca. And she seems in great spirits, which is a little scary because, well, gotta see the predictions to find out. Kayla acknowledges Bianca standing tall at this episode of SmackDown and asks how she's feeling. She gives us all of the ESTs, runs them all down. She's feeling great. Next question. Becky says she's going to break you. What do you think about that? Bianca tells us about Lynch harping on this 26 second squash, and that she cannot wait to go longer than that. Because before, in that 26 seconds, the only thing that the man hurt was her feelings. And Becky knows that she cannot hang with her, but she'll do her talking in the ring. This is Bianca as great as ever. She is an absolute phenomenon, and she squeezes her ideas in effortlessly, despite how many or how few moments she's given. So our must-watch segment, go for who you want to see. Because you cannot go wrong here. If you're short of time and just want to get Liv's mindset, go with her. If you're feeling a little sentimental, check out Ray. And if you're up for the EST's final comments going into her rematch with the man, you'll be pleased there as well. What do you think? Which match are you most looking forward to at Extreme Rules? Why? Who might be some interesting pairings in the upcoming drafts? What's going to get shaken up? And just anything else you all are thinking. Let me know in the comments. So are you looking for a little something else to watch? Are you curious as to what I think about who's going to win? The predictions are up, folks. This time I predicted with Miketavious, who also has a YouTube channel that I'll put down in the description. He's knowledgeable, funny guy, former wrestler, knows the product. We've added stakes to these predictions, with each one of us defending for a chosen charity. Myself predicting for Joyful Heart Foundation, and Miketavious predicting for Reign. Now these are both exceptionally worthy organizations, and the need for ones that support the survivors of sexual abuse is always increasing. And with everything that's come to light with the Plane Ride from Hell episode of Dark Side of the Ring, Heidi Doyle is my freaking hero, by the way, it just felt fitting for those charities to be our ones of choice. So head over when this video's done to the predictions. Let me know what your own are. I'll be responding to them. And you can click the link there to donate if you can. But as always, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Tap that bell icon to make sure you get notifications for when new videos come out. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.